Alright guys, this is kind of a funky video that I wanted to do, and the reason I wanted to do this gel test today with this ammunition was because I got these off a buddy at work. Didn't own a firearm, had the ammunition laying around in his garage. The approximate age on these, as you can see from this box, it's pretty old and weathered. The inside is all like dark and waxy looking for some reason, but they sat in a garage where the temperature fluctuated up and down, of course, with hot and cold seasons. It was a partial box. There was a few shot out of it, and he said, "Hey, I got these old rounds if you want them, $5." And I said, "Sure." So I never intended on carrying them or anything like that, because knowing the age and the storage method of them, I didn't expect them to perform. So I basically just used them for target practice down here because I wasn't going to count my life on them or anything like that. These are the silver tips, 85 grain hollow points. This is the old school version. I think up until last year or the previous, they still manufactured these, but they switched over to their new packaging and whatnot. So I'm going to be testing those soon. I'm not sure if they're the same or not. They are very similar though. They look almost identical, and they're both 85 grains, both called silver tips. But anyways, after a video I did, and the video was most powerful 380 rounds you can get. Some of them were advertised up to 300 foot-pounds of energy for a 380. I'll put a link in the description to that video if you want to check it out. So we tested all kinds of different plus P loads and whatnot, and crazy exotic rounds and stuff. It was a pretty good video, so check that out if you want. But anyways, after that video off camera, I just popped one or two into the used blocks that had 1,000,000 shots in them already, and I got massive expansion out of some of these. Now I can tell you, when I was just plinking with them, some was light loads to the point I was even checking for squib loads, and then some of them went off as normal, and some of them seemed like half power. So these are the 4 best that I picked out and saved for this, where they had the least amount of like weathering and corrosion and whatnot on them. So anyway, seeing what these did, and the fact that you can't get these anymore, I suppose I could probably search around on an auction site or something and buy old stock. But these did fantastic. Like, the penetration wasn't great because the expansion was so massive. It was probably the biggest expansion I've ever seen from a 380 hollow point when they actually expanded, because on those light loads, obviously they're not going to expand because they're going too slow. So hopefully some of these will do really good. And I got my Chrono to kind of gauge that, to see how crappy these rounds are. Hopefully we got 3 or 4 good ones there. As I said, they're 85 grain. I don't see an advertised velocity on here anywhere, but I'll try to find the statistics on that if there is an advertised velocity. And the gun I'm using is a Sig P238 with a 2.7-inch barrel. But yeah, anyways, I wanted to pop some of these in here and see if I can get them to expand like I did a few months ago, because they are massive. And then hopefully, when I get the new 380 silver tips, I'm hoping that they perform the same. If not, you can bet your butt I'll be looking for them online on auction sites to get a few boxes of them before they're all gone. So I would like to do a few of each in clear block and through 4 layers of denim, but obviously with only 4 shots, I'm not able to do that. Well, unless I just do 1 of each, but I want to do 2 of each because we don't know if one's going to be a dud and the next one's going to be okay or what. So what I'm going to do, with the limited amount of shots I have, I'm just going to put a layer of t-shirt over it. Because a lot of people complain about the 4 layers of denim anyways. Well, who wears that? Well, guess what? You see the snow? You know how thick this is? It's thicker than that denim. But anyways, I'm just going to put a layer of t-shirt over it just for this test because I only have 4 rounds. I don't want to shoot them all through denim in case they don't work, because I want to see that expansion. And I also don't want to do just clear blocks, so we'll throw a t-shirt on there. Good happy medium. And if you're shooting a bad guy in the summertime, that's what he's wearing anyways. So I'll shut up now and get to it, but real quick, I just realized I forgot to mention the blocks. So these are both 10% ballistic gelatin. This one's Knox gelatin I made myself. This one is the clear ballistics gelatin from clearballistics.com. They are both calibrated at 3.25 inches today. You can see that BB down in there. They both measure out at 3 1/4. There's a pretty big difference between these 2 types of gelatin that most people don't realize. I made a video about that explaining all the differences. So if you want to know the differences between these, and you'll probably see it here today as well, depending on how our rounds perform, I'll put a link in the description to that video if you want to learn more about these two types of blocks. All right, so as I said, I got the Chrono lined up. You guys can't really see it even if I angled that way. So I will call out or show what the velocity is. 935 feet per second. (920 feet per second). All right, there's entry for both. As you can see, we got expansion. I don't know if you can tell yet, but there's what I was talking about, where that's massive expansion. And then that's why you get really poor penetration because they expand so much. But man, that's a big hole. And look at these permanent wound cavities too. These things are huge for a 380. They look like a really good 9mm load here. Again, with 380, if you get really good expansion, you don't get very much penetration. And because the expansion on these are so massive, you get really bad penetration. But that still amazes me that they get so big. Now today, on a previous test I just did, if you couldn't see by the other bullet holes, usually my experience with this clear is that if a round expands as it's intended to do and does so fully, typically they don't penetrate quite as far in the clear stuff because it has more resistance, typically. But today, for some reason, I'm getting more penetration in the clear than I am my Nox, even though they're both calibrated at 3.25 inches. Now that could be because it's 24 degrees outside, so these blocks are getting colder than the optimal temperature of 39 degrees, so they're actually getting a little stiffer from sitting out here. And actually you can see there's a little bit of ice starting to form on the edges where it's thin because it's so cold out here. So also, if you're wondering if these were temperature controlled and calibrated, yes they are. They came straight out of my fridge, and they're getting even colder here. So that might have something to do with why today, with the previous video, I'm experiencing a little less penetration out of them. So we'll shoot two in the clear block now and see what happens. But if we get more penetration out of the clear block, then that's probably why, because these are probably getting a little too cold. So like I said, they're 10%, but with them getting colder like this, it might be behaving more like 15% gelatin and not giving as much penetration. (834 feet per second). So that one was pretty slow. Again, like I said, these things are 15, 20 years old and weren't stored very well. But I just wanted to see this expansion on camera today. I can't remember the previous number. It says 835 right now. I thought that was the same number. If it is, then we didn't get a read on that one. All right. First shot, second shot. There's your wound channel from that on the top. Bottommost channel there is the wound channel from the bottom one. There it sits. And this one right here is the other one. And I can already tell you they did expand, but not nearly as much as they did through the Nox. So that's another thing that I typically notice. Typically, is like I said, sometimes this stuff throws me for the loop and it does the opposite of what I'm used to. But typically, you'll get less expansion through this clear stuff than you do the Nox. And because we did get less expansion over here, even though they still fully expanded, well, sorry, not fully, even though they still expanded decent, they didn't get as large in diameter, so there was less resistance and they penetrated further. So this one, if you count this bounce back, that's how far the bullet actually went, and then they bounce back. That's another difference. Again, if you want to see the video explaining all the differences on these, all the ones I've already mentioned and more, check out that video, the link in the description about it. So bounce back here, and again, it's a little hard to tell on camera sometimes, About 8.25 is what I'm seeing. It's kind of hard to, because it depends on if I go like this or if I go like this. 8.25 is what I'm getting. And then so on this one with the bounce back, right at about 8 and 7/8. And you can see also now, naturally, since these didn't expand as much, your wound channel is not going to be as big. But that's another difference between the two, is even if they do expand identically, wound channel, permanent wound cavity in the Nox is always bigger than it is in the clear. Again, all that's explained in the video. But that's good though, because these still expanded through the clear. Oh, and both of those were, or at least, well, the first one was low velocity, and as I was stating, I couldn't remember if that was, I got the same number twice, which would mean that it didn't get a read. So both of these were going slower than the ones over here, so that's going to affect it some too. But they still expanded some, and not just a minuscule amount, like they actually peeled back and mushroomed. So that's why I said those things are really good rounds, even at low velocities. In the stuff that's harder for them to typically expand in, they still expanded pretty nice. So basically, those rounds have a very high percentile chance of expanding no matter what. And the stuff I did off camera, I did it through 4 layers of denim, and they still expanded. So that's why I really like those, because they seem to expand no matter what. So the problem with that is, if you get real good expansion, you're going to get real shallow penetration. And if it doesn't expand as much, you'll get more penetration. But it's good to know that they'll expand no matter what. But for most people, the penetration is probably going to be too light. But I really like that they open up so big. I mean, that's massive. So let's quit talking about it and pull them out and actually compare them side by side and take some measurements. All right, so there they are. The ones on the left are my first shots. The ones on my right were my second shots. This is the brown gel. These two are the clear gel. So first shot, second shot, clear. First shot, second shot, brown. As you can see, they expanded a lot more in the brown, a lot larger diameter. But the expansion and just the way these performed in the clear is much more textbook. Very uniform and pretty, if you will, compared to these. But, you know, they still held together pretty well. They're just a little more ugly there. So, but there's obviously a vast difference in diameter, and we'll get a makeshift measurement here in a second. But yeah, so these things expanded massively through the Nox. Still pretty well through the clear, which is a combination of the fact that I mentioned usually hollow points don't expand quite as well in this, and then also that the ones shot into this block came in at a lower velocity. So again, depending on the angle that I hold this camera, could affect it slightly. That first one there is coming in at a little over 1/2 inch, which would make that thing 55 to 60 caliber in expansion wise. The second one coming in even larger. I don't know, what would you call that? About, I'm not counting down to the 16ths and the 32nds there. Oh, now I gotta move this thing. It's wanting to fall over on me. Anyways, your second one there is coming in at about, actually a little over 5/8 of an inch. So that one's definitely in the 60 caliber range there as far as expansion goes, if not larger. And then the ones that went through the clear gel, it looks like literally a hair under, if not right at about 1/2 inch, which would be 50 caliber. Now, I don't plan to continue to take measurements with this. I am going to get a little dial caliper or whatever they're called, so we can get more precise and quicker measurements. So that'll be something to look forward to in the future. I'll probably work on getting a little scale too, so that we can weigh these out when we pick them out. But hey, that's going to wrap it up. If you want to see a review on the Sig 238 here, I'll put a link to that in the description as well. Again, don't forget to check out the video explaining the differences between these two gels if you want to be educated on that. I'll have a whole bunch more gel tests coming up. 380, 9mm, 40, 45, 22, 22 Magnum, 17 HMR, 7.62x39, all kinds of stuff coming up. So stay tuned for that. Also, don't forget to check, linked in the description, the big collaboration video I did where I tested a whole bunch of different of the most powerful 380 rounds. But hey, I appreciate you guys watching, always do, and I hope to catch you on the next one.